So I made it to the final video in the course, and I want to cover lighting and rendering and getting that final video file made. But I've also noticed along the way that I've missed a few things that I wanted to cover in the course and some of the details. And there's some changes that I want to make to the character just to make things work better. So we're going to do that first, and we're going to finish up with setting up our lighting and rendering it all out. So let's get this course finished. So this is where I got to with my scene and my model. And the first thing I've noticed is I don't really like the proportions of the hat. And I think the whole model is a little bit too kind of tall and thin. So these are easy things to change. And when we started the course, I kind of explained that I liked working in lower detail models, having less faces and polygons in there, because it makes it a lot easier to make changes. And, you know, as if by magic, I'm going to be proved right here because we can easily change any of the things that we're not happy with. So let's start with the hat. So we're going to go into edit mode. I'm just going to turn on my screen keys again. I always forget to have those turned on. Screencast keys. There we go. So if we hit the tab key to go into edit mode, and I'm going to push 3 and select the face, and I just want to use my select more. So select, and it's more and less more. So I've got a shortcut set up to make my life easier. I'm going to show you how to do this. If you right click and then click change shortcut. So I have mine set to my square bracket keys because I don't know what else you use them for, and then I can easily increase. So if you haven't got them mapped, maybe now's a good time to do that. If not, you're going to be manually going up here and selecting more. So we're going to keep selecting until we've got these faces selected. So with these selected, if I now hit S and then Z to scale, you'll see that gives me a vertical line. And if I start to scale like that, it's going to give me this weird distortion. That's not what I want. So we're going to undo that. If we hit S and then Z twice, it will now put the scaling line at the angle of the rest of the vertices. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can see that Blender has worked out the origin, the direction that all of these vertices are going in. So if I hit S again and tap Z twice, it will scale it along that line. So let's do something like that. And then we can do the same thing to move it. So G and Z twice. And then I'm just going to pull that down. And I think to me that's a better proportion of hat. I'm happy with that. Okay, and we're just going to move it up very slightly. And the next thing I want to do is go to the front view. And again, I think the cactus is too kind of thin. So we're going to scale everything up using the S key and just scale like this. And I'm going to scale it on the Z key. Origin back down again. And we're going to have to fix the mouth, but we'll do that in a minute. What I want to do is just give myself a bit more space between the arms and the hat. So if we hit tab key to go into edit mode, and then make sure we've got X-ray turned on, I can drag a box around here, and then hold the shift key and drag a box around here. And then if we hit G and Z, we could just pull all of this down. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And just pull it down. And let's go into shaded view. Now, because it can be a little bit confusing to navigate because I've got the whole scene visible. If we now go to view and frame selected, because we've got the cactus highlighted, Blender will automatically snap the view to that. So if you ever get lost, select something on this side, let's say the cactus pot, view, and then frame selected, and Blender will snap to that. So if you ever get lost in a big scene, which I regularly do, that's how you fix it. Okay, we're going to go in and we're going to pick up the mouth and the teeth with the shift key, and we're just going to pull those out because they've got a little bit lost now. So I think that's looking a lot better now, and it's going to give me some space to make some flowers to go on the top of the cactus. There's one more thing I want to do before that, and that's to just give our character some really simple eyebrows. So we'll flip to the front view again, and let's go into this, turn off X-ray. And our 3D cursor is there, which is fine for what we're doing. So we go shift and a mesh plane. And then I want to move it up, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees so we can see it. And let's just pull it off to the side. I'm actually going to turn off my sky, which I didn't name, so that's going to be a little bit tricky to find. So before we go any further, let's name this eyebrow so we can find it again. And we're going to click on the sky behind, and we're going to turn off this eye here. And then we can see what we're working with. So tab back into this one vertex mode. And then we're going to hit the M key and choose at center. And that's going to take all the vertices and turn it into one, because we only need one to work with. And then we're going to hit the E key and extrude like this, and extrude like this. And you can tweak with the G key if you need to. And I just want to make a kind of, not really sure what shape I'm making here, something like this. And then if we hit the A key, select everything, and then E, and we'll just scale it down a little bit. And let's position this over our cactus now with the G key, and we'll rotate. You see we've got lost again, so if we go to view, frame selected, and then we're just going to pull this out to the front of the cactus so we can see it. And I want to make this a little bit smaller. And let's apply our modifier. So search, subdivision surface, so that's 2. And then I'm just going to select everything and hit the E key and put it back. And it doesn't matter if it's floating, if it's kind of more cartoony if it's floating above the head. Let's just go back to our scene view, the camera, and see how we're looking. So I think that's looking good, and let's make that the darker green as well. So we've got cactus darker from there, and if we apply our mirror modifier, and we're going to apply it on the y-axis. So there we go, he's got eyebrows. And the great thing about working in Blender is that even though we set up our camera animation, it doesn't matter that we've already done that and then we started making changes, because Blender works everything out for us, so our animation still works great. And we're going to do the final detail here, which is to add in the flowers for his hands. So we're going to start with another mesh, plane, so Shift A mesh and plane, and then we're going to hit backslash, to go into edit mode. So we're just looking at this one object and then hit the tab key. So we're going to make a basic leaf here. Let's just go into fast shading here at the top. And I'm going to start by clicking off, and then I'm going to hit Control and R to make a loop cut. And then I'm going to select these two vertex, hit G and Y to pull them back. And select this vertex and just pull it back a little bit. Maybe these can go further back actually. And I'm going to put one more loop cut in here. And then if we hit the 2 key to select the edge, and then we can hit G and Z to pull it down. Okay, and then we can apply our subdivision surface, search subdivision surface. Okay, we've got a start. So let's shade smooth, and we'll bump that up to 2. And I think this needs to be longer, so I'm going to select this vertex, which you can't really see, but if you drag it, it's in there. Hit G and Y, and I'm going to pull it out like this. That's a better shape. And I'm going to hit A to select everything, S and X to scale on the X-axis. And then I want to select this vertex and then turn on our proportional editing, which is up here. Now mine is still set to random, so just make sure you change it back to smooth and then hit the G key. And again, mine will be set to a huge size because we've got edits in the background, so I just need to keep moving our mouse wheel forward until it comes into view. And then we're going to use the Z key, and we're just going to bend up our leaf like this, and we'll drag and select some more. And if that's picking up too many now, so let's select this one again and then hit G, and we're going to move it on the Y and then move it up again. So we're kind of bending our leaf up like this. I think this should work. It should be enough. Let's just select these and just move them. Let's go into X-ray mode so we can see better. Let's select these, pull this down, and maybe we can try turning off proportional editing now and just give us control that one. Okay, and I'm just going to hit A and scale it again on the Y so it's thinner. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to go to the top view. And this is where our 3D cursor is. So I'm going to select here and hit Shift and S and then cursor to selected. But then I still need this cursor to be a little bit away from the leaf. So if we hit A to select everything, and then G, and then move it on the Y, we can pull our leaf away a little bit. So the reason we're doing this is we want to rotate this leaf around the 3D cursor. And we're going to do that using this tool here, spin. This is a fun one. So now if you click on the plus and drag, you can see it's duplicating the shape. Now, we're going to go down to our spin dialog in the bottom here, and we're going to type in 360, so it goes all the way around. We're going to hit use duplicates, and we're going to change this to 5 and see how that looks. And if we now spin the camera, we've got something like this. Let's turn up X-ray mode. So we've got the start of our leaf. And I'm just going to hit tab, and then push the 3 key and hit A to select everything. And then we're going to use Alt and E and extrude faces along normals. Just give it a little bit of thickness. Nice. And then I'm going to tab into object mode rather than edit mode. And we're going to hit S and Y to scale it up a little bit so it's more kind of like that. Okay, we're going to now hit Shift and D to duplicate this, move it up slightly on the Z axis, and then S to scale. Now, what you'll see here is if I scale, we're going to undo this. I'm just going to undo that. Hit S to scale. It's going to scale towards this yellow dot, orange dot, which is our origin. Now, we don't want that. We want it to scale to the center. Luckily, our 3D cursor is at the center. So if I hit this full stop key, the period key, and choose 3D cursor, and now hit S, you'll see that it scales into the center. And then we're going to hit R and Z and rotate it a bit. And then we're going to do the same thing again. G and Z. And I'm going to rotate it again and just scale it down a little bit. And maybe we'll scale this one up a little bit more as well. Just push this down. So we've got this kind of cactusy desert flower. And I just want to make in the center and like a UV sphere as well. So Shift and A, mesh, UV sphere. I'm going to scale it down and pull it up and hit shade smooth. And there we've got a very, very simple flower. So let's go into shading view and we're going to give this a color. So we're going to go new and let's make it a kind of nice pink like that. So what we can do now is we can apply this material to all the other objects here. And the easiest way to do that, because we could go through and manually choose from our drop down for each one, but if we select everything, so hit A to select everything, and then hold down the Shift key and click on the leaf that has the material applied to it. So you must select that last, and then hit Control and L, link materials, and apply it to everything. And the last thing I want to do is join all of these together. So we've got one object. Now, we've got a modifier applied, so we need to go through and just apply each modifier. So click on that, down, click on this arrow and down, make sure you've done all of these, and there won't be one here, and then we can select each of these objects. And if you go to Object and Join, and now we've made one object, so it's much easier to deal with. Let's just undo that. And then if we hit our backslash key again, and let's go into this view for now and turn up our camera snapping. Okay, and then we're just going to scale this down. And a little tweak that I want to make this easier. Let's just pull this up to the side for now to see it. So now I've got it pulled over here. I want to rename it. So cactus flower, so we don't lose it. And then we want to get this orange dot, which is the origin, into the center of the flower. So if we just go back into our solo mode, so we can see with the backslash key, and then rotate the flower upside down, go to edit mode, make sure we've got vertex on. I'm just going to select this vertex here. And if we hit Shift and S and cursor to selected, the 3D cursor now snaps to the bottom of the flower. And then we can go back into object mode with the tab key and go Object, Set Origin to 3D Cursor. And now, our center of the flower, if I move the cursor away, you'll see, oh, why didn't that move? Let's try again. There you go. You see the origin is in the center of our flower. Now, that might not make a lot of sense at the moment, but if I hit the full stop key and go back into bounding box center, and hit S to scale, it will scale around our origin point. And that also means if I now click on the cactus and select with the face mode this face here, what I can do is hit Shift and S and go cursor to selected, and then go back into object mode, select my flower, hit Shift and S and go selection to cursor, and it will snap to that part of the plant. Now, it's a little bit fiddly, but you'll get your head around that workflow and it will speed things up so much. So now I can scale it down kind of get it the size we want on top of the cactus. And then we're going to do the same trick. So I'm going to click on this and go into face mode and choose that face there. Shift and S, cursor to selected, back into object mode, and then we're going to duplicate this, so Shift and D, and we can just pull it anywhere. And then Shift and S, selections cursor, and we can make this one maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, let's return to our camera view and turn on shading and see how we're looking. Wrong shading, that one. Nice. So I think that's all the details that we need for this scene. So I'm going to turn my sky back on over here. And we're going to tackle the fact that this looks good here, but as soon as I hit render, and if I go into my render image button, things don't look so good. So why is that happening? What's going on is when we're in this view, Blender is using its default lighting setup, which is really nice and gives us everything we want, but it's not actually set up in our scene. When we make a default scene with a default cube, we actually have one light here, and that's what's lighting our entire scene. And if I hit the G key now, I can move the light around and you'll see that it responds to the position, which is great. You can create some really cool effects. And if we click on this light bulb, we can increase the radius, we can increase the power. So let's try making the power like 5,000. It's filling in more. We can click out of our locked camera mode and put the light in front of the camera. And we've got more of a night scene. And if I hit render, okay, so this is looking better, but I don't want to spend the time on this lesson carefully placing lights. And lights in Blender or any kind of 3D is a whole art form in itself, and I've got a lot to learn about that too. So what I like to do is cheat. We've got two options. So let's delete the light. So we're going to select it and hit X and delete, and everything's going to go pretty dark. And you remember from before, in other lessons, if we go to this world tab, we've got this color, and if we turn it to full black, you can't see anything. It's pitch black. If we turn it to white, we've got a light added to our scene, and that might be enough. We could maybe change it to like a slightly yellowy, pinky color. So it looks okay. This still looks better, I think. You're kind of losing a lot of the shadows, but maybe that's the lighting you want. So we'll hit render and have a look at that. So that's one option. Let's take this back down to a grey for now, which is kind of Blender's default. And we can add in a sunlight. So Shift and A, and then we'll choose light from here and sun. And this uses kind of accurate modeling to simulate what happens when the sun's in the sky. And if you click on this light here, we can change the strength. We can also change the angle. And if you just click on it and drag, you'll see as you move it, it's like the sun's sitting higher in the sky. Or we can move it back down again. And so you can, and then we can also rotate the sun that we've made and kind of position. So you can see if you have it up here, like here, and then as you pull it across, it's like the sunlight is rising in the sky. Shadows move as they would in real life. And you can get some nice effects like that. And you can combine that with changing your world color, so you could make your world a little bit lighter as well. If you make it darker, you get more pronounced, dramatic shadows. That might be more like a kind of midday sun. So you can play around with this and get lighting that you like. And if I hit render now, I think that's looking pretty nice. But I think we can improve it more. So there's a technique called HDR lighting in 3D. And what I use is an image that has various lights in it to simulate a world. So imagine your entire scene is in like a ball, and then you wrap an image around that ball and use that image to light it. So that's what an HDR does. And the good news is there's loads of these for free on the internet. So, sorry, I just wanted to go to my internet, and it appears to be on my page where you can buy some of my work, or there's some stuff for free. So if you ever need some free assets for your game, or you want to learn how I put my models together, you can visit designersoup.itch.io, and there'll probably be a link in the description. Don't know how that happens, unfortunately. Anyway, sorry about This is the page I actually wanted, polyhaven.com. So I'll put a link in the description again. But if you have a look, you can see these kind of weird images that are like a 3D camera view, a 360 camera view that's been flattened out. And we can use these to light our scene. So if you click on one of these, you get a sense of what it looks like. And if you go to the download section here, if we set it to 4K, we change to HDR and hit download. And then we're downloading a scene. So you can choose any of them. Like there's loads to choose from. And I encourage you to try a few different ones out because they'll give such a different look to your scene. So how do we use them? We go back to Blender and then we click on our world button, which is already on. At the moment, our background is set to color. If we click on this dot here, we can then actually change this to an environment texture. And everything's going to go pink. And pink is the color that Blender uses to represent a missing image. So it's saying there's nothing in there at the moment. So what we're going to do is click on the open button. And then I've already got a bunch of HDRs that I've downloaded. But you're going to navigate to wherever you've just downloaded the image. My external hard drive is going to take ages to fire up. There we go, we're in. So I like to use this one, Abandoned Slipway, because it gives me like a nice natural soft lighting. And it's pretty subtle, but I find that always gives me like a nice bright light to use. And again, we can adjust the strength of it, so you can play around with getting the lighting and the shadows that you want. Let's try out 0.7. And I've got a bunch of different ones. So you'll see that if I put on a dawn one, the lighting changes. I've got one where it's got like I've got a more dramatic one. Let's see what we've got. Let's do this one at night. I'm not sure about that effect, but it's worth experimenting around and trying some different lights until you get something that you're happy with. That's quite nice, actually. Maybe we'll use that one. Let's go back to my own band and slipway. It does me well. So there we go. So now everything's lit in our scene, and if I hit the render button, we've got a nice cactus desert scene, and I think we're kind of ready. Let's just see how we compare with... I'm actually going to delete this sun because it's overexposing my scene. That's why things don't look the way I thought they would. And then let's turn this back up to 1. There we go. That's looking nicer. So yeah, I think we're pretty good. So one little final little trick that you can add to add a bit of interesting realism to your scene is this button here. So if you click on the camera and then click on the camera icon, then there's a button here that says depth of field. And if we check this and reduce our f-stop, you should see everything goes blurry. As we start to increase the f-stop, we can pull out the foreground. We're going to just use this eyedropper to focus on the camera and then drop our f-stop almost as low as it goes. So now it's going to blur the background and keep the front of the image sharp, and it gives you that really nice cinematic effect. So I think we're good. So all that's left to do is go to the render button, the printer button, sorry, underneath, and change your output to FF MPEG video. And then we're going to change the encoding down here to MPEG full. And you can play around with the quality. I like actually the high quality setting. We're going to render at 1920 by 1080, which is HD quality. If you wanted it to be 4K, you could increase this to 200%. It's going to increase your render time loads, but that's up to you. I don't know what you got to plan with the rest of the day. So if we hit now, render, and then choose animation rather than image, and it should start rendering from the start. And go and find something to do for 10 minutes because it's going to take a while. I'll see you on the other side. And there we go, one finished cactus scene. I forgot to mention something important, and that's when we were rendering out. Make sure you change your output from here to somewhere you can find it. If you can't find your file, it will be on your C drive and in the temp folder. But yeah, really pleased with what we've come up with, and if you managed to follow all the way through, well done. I know there's a lot of information to cover, and that's why I tried to break it down into smaller lessons. This is what learning Blender is like. Like, there will be things that are very complicated and hard to get your head around, And then after a while, you've been doing it for so long that it just becomes natural, and things like snapping the cursor to the origin and repositioning things just become second nature, and you'll be amazed how fast you can work. So well done on going all the way through, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.